When it comes to Donald Trump, I understand if you are pessimistic to a fault. If you believe that none of the many things that are challenging him are gonna catch up to him, that he's never gonna truly have to pay for what he's done, that he can just skate by and commit all of these alleged crimes, still become nominee, still become president, you might be right, but there's reason to believe perhaps that America and even many Republicans, even many MAGA Republicans might actually not be willing to go that far. So we have gone through, and there is polling that indicates that while he is dominating the Republican nominating contest right now, that might not in the end be enough for him if these criminal cases go the way he does not want them to go. So most Americans say that they would not vote for Trump if he were convicted of a felony crime by a jury. So that's 57%, which is admittedly not much more than the share of Democrats in most of these polls, but it's a few. Or if he's currently serving time in prison, that gets you 3 more percentage points. That's good. But more importantly, that is a third of Republicans in both cases, give or take, about as big as his core MAGA audience. So there is another third that say that the criminal cases against Trump make them more likely to vote for him in 2024. But I don't know if that means what they say it means. I mean, the person who says that they care even more about him if he is found to have broken the law in a variety of different ways and he's sitting in a jail cell, I think there's a good chance they were gonna vote for him anyway. I think they just wanna show their support by answering questions like that. But anyway, some more updated polls show that nearly a quarter of Trump voters say that he shouldn't be nominated if convicted, which is not like a ton, but that's his base, a fourth of it, that would potentially have this as a hard line that they will not cross. And the thing is, it's not like it has to be a lot. Remember, the election was determined by a very small handful of voters in a very small number of states back in 2020. And while polling is all over the place or whatever, it's almost certainly the case that that will be how 2024 is determined as well, if it's Biden versus Trump. So in many of these states, for instance, where Biden won by less than 6 points, if a quarter of his voters are ready to flee or at least stay home if he's a jailbird at that point, that is enough to cause that to happen again. And so, look, Donald Trump posts a lot of polls on his social media and he's free to do that, but he doesn't post these polls. That doesn't mean that they're not worthy of our time and our attention, and perhaps could be the cause of a little bit of hope, a little bit of optimism. Adrienne, what do you think?
I am optimistic that people will exercise some common sense, if not in the voting booth, but at least, like you said, staying home and not actually using their power to vote to put someone in office who is what, in a cell? Like, get out of here with that. We don't even have a protocol or a process for it, but it just is completely and totally illogical and unreasonable. But then again, that's how a lot of the mindsets of people who believe that he should be in a position of power, knowing good and well that he is a very good friend of fascism.
100%. Yeah, as you say, like we literally don't even know how that would work in practice.
Seriously.
I mean, look, a lot of it's gonna come down to which charges exactly it is, because we know that would he become president, there's no way that he's not gonna use his pardon power even more loosey-goosey than he did in 2020, and even insofar as protecting himself. But I think the numbers aren't nearly high enough for me to feel like confident about the state of America, the state of our democracy or our citizenry or anything like that. But I think it's enough that I don't see how he could win in the end. Or even, look, if it gets bad enough that he potentially couldn't be replaced at the RNC. They haven't been willing to go that far before, but before he hasn't been sitting in a jail cell. So things are not necessarily as rosy for him in terms of people's willingness to follow him off the cliff than he might think. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.